So I already gave you guys some of my initial thoughts on the debate in the immediate aftermath. I had to go back and watch it again for obvious reasons to, isolate more clips and to really digest it fully. And I'm prepared to give you my final idea of who the winners are and who the losers are. So first, let's do the losers. My thoughts pretty much have not changed since the initial debate thoughts segment that I did in the immediate aftermath. The biggest losers are Amy Klobuchar and Mayor Pete. They are totally insufferable. Now, what's fascinating is that I tweeted, it was like in the middle of the debate or maybe 3/4 of the way through the debate. I said, I guarantee you that they're going to say, that mainstream media is going to say that Amy Klobuchar had a good night. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. In the aftermath, mainstream media is really trying to push this idea of Klobuchar as being serious and standing up to Elizabeth Warren and all types of nonsense. They're even doing it with Mayor Pete. Now, I thought, watching the debate, in the case of Mayor Pete, even he's being like a little too much for them. Like, it's one thing to be a tough, strong debater. It's another thing to just come across as a dick. And he really was just coming across as a dick, on top of being wrong on the substance of it all. But the media won't care about him being wrong on the substance because they think that the more centrist you are, the more corporate you are, the more serious you are. But yeah, the media didn't just puff up Klobuchar afterwards. They're also puffing up Mayor Pete. So, I warned you about the Klobuchar angle to it. They're really all in on that and acting like, she's serious. This might have something to do, guys, with the fact that it looks like Joe Biden, and everybody seems to agree at this point, it really does look like he's going to tail off into nothingness, and he doesn't really have a chance to get the nomination. On some level, everybody's sensing that. So now mainstream media is looking for their replacement. Looking for his replacement, I should say. And it honestly reminds me a lot of the 2016 Republican primary, because I don't know how well you guys remember this, but they did this with everybody trying to say not Trump. So at first it was like, the wonderful and glorious Jeb Bush shall be the nominee this time. And Jeb Bush showed everybody in about 3.5 minutes that there's no way he's going to get the nomination because he's incredibly boring and awkward and nobody likes him and he stands for nothing and there's just nothing there. They were coasting off that Bush name recognition and thinking it's a positive. Meanwhile, everybody hated George W. Bush. So first they thought him, then that was obvious that wasn't going to work. Then they pivoted to, but Marco Rubio will fill the power gap. And Marco Rubio, the glitchy Marco bot, repeated himself like 9 times in one debate. Even Chris Christie schooled him, and he petered off into oblivion. So then they were scrambling, man. They're like, we'll take anybody but Trump. Like, give me any establishment Republican, we'll take him. They even tried to boost up Kasich, but he was just too affable and such a goofy guy that it just didn't take off like they wanted it to take off. I remember when John Kasich got like second in one of the contests that was like, 3 or 4 contests in, and he was like so jovial about it. And it's like, this loser is the guy who you're going to try to push on everybody? That didn't work. They even said, we'll settle for Ted Cruz. They even pushed Ted Cruz over Trump and it didn't work. You're getting that sense now on the Democratic side, except obviously with Bernie. They don't want Bernie. They'll do anything to stop Bernie. They really thought, at the beginning, Biden with his giant lead, he'll be okay. This is the established, seasoned politician. Now it appears like he's fallen off. Okay, well, now it's maybe Mayor Pete and maybe Amy Klobuchar. And then you'll see, man, I think that last move, which they've already started to show hints of pretty strongly, actually, is going to be, all right, we'll take Warren over Bernie, just not Bernie. Because you already see mainstream media's pretty kind to Warren. Like, really, they give her really good press. So, but, it was better press for Biden. Now the press has turned on Biden because it's clear he's not going to make it. And then there's this real serious effort to prop up Klobuchar and Mayor Pete as insurance options because they will 100% represent the ideology of the establishment and they're safe for them. So they're trying to make them a thing. And all of corporate media is running, acting like they're serious. They were the biggest fails by far because here's who's not going to buy their nonsense. The voters. they went into a Democratic primary debate and railed against every single policy that the left holds dear. Every single one. And they think like this is going to land? No. It's like imagine a Republican debate where, somebody goes out there and rails against tax cuts and against the wall. There's no way that candidate would thrive. And that's effectively what Mayor Pete and Amy Klobuchar did in the last debate, except obviously it was free college and Medicare for all and stuff that they were arguing against. And it's amazing to me that they're still so out of touch that they think that this could land. You could have the most masterful, skilled politician try to, run against the tide of the party at this point in time, and it ain't going to work. Because, we're in an era that's populist, it's anti-corruption, and people actually believe in stuff. The voters actually believe in stuff. So they were the biggest fails by far, but it's amazing to see the gap between how they did and what the media is reporting. And that's why, honestly, I shouldn't even be complaining, because that's why this show is a show that people watch. It's because they're so tired of being force-fed a narrative when you turn on mainstream media. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm perfect or I'm fully objective or whatever the case is. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I'm just saying they're so bad that all I have to do is not, clearly suck, and this show will grow and people will like this show. And also the other difference is I'm upfront and I'm honest with my opinion. They won't tell you that they're corporate centrist neoliberals to their core, even though they are. I'll tell you, yes, I consider myself populist left, a social democrat. I'm a supporter of Bernie Sanders. I let everybody know what my beliefs are up front, so you can't turn around and be, well, he's biased. Biased? No, I'm giving you my exact opinion up front. There's no unfair, I'm not playing hide the ball with my ideology, and it's not like an unfair tilt in a certain direction. I'm telling you up front what my beliefs are. So there's a degree of honesty that you're never going to get in corporate media, because they're honestly trying to say that, oh, no, yeah, definitely, Mayor Pete and Amy Klobuchar, objectively did a good job. Yeah, wait until the polls come out and you'll see how that prediction goes. So they were definitely the losers. They were totally insufferable. Now, the winners. One of them is, I already mentioned this in my initial debate thoughts, but I'm convinced on this, and then one of them I changed up. So the one who I changed up is I originally didn't like the way Yang performed, but I realized when I watched it over again, that was just because I disagreed with some of the stands that he was making. Now, when I watched it the second time and I tried to remove my own lens from it, my own bias from it, I actually think he did a really good job. And it should also, you got to understand, it's almost like there's a handicap against him. Really is a bias built in against him, because he's an entrepreneur who nobody knew before this election, and now he's up there and he's legitimately pummeling so many established politicians like Kamala Harris. It's so funny that she used to go around bragging, probably still does, I'm a top tier candidate. Ugh, how gross. Like, seriously, you're gonna acknowledge and admit, like, oh yeah, there are different tiers and I'm in the top tier. No, what kind of smug, self-righteous nonsense is that? And it just so happens that, if you look at many of the metrics, he's beating her. And she's fallen off a cliff, and his trend is upwards. So I actually think Andrew Yang did a very good job. When I watched it again, yes, there were many moments where I disagreed with him, and I thought, no, I don't, I think he's painting this in an inaccurate way, whether it was the back and forth on the wealth tax, or when he tried to take Bernie on the issue of a federal jobs guarantee. I don't even necessarily agree with the federal jobs guarantee, but I think the way that he argued against Bernie, I don't like the arguments he was using. So there's that. But then there were moments that he actually did, nailed it and knocked it out of the park and was willing to take stands that the other people weren't taking. So, a great example of that was on drug decriminalization and the opioid crisis. He was like, yeah, we need to decriminalize, and if we want to treat it like a health crisis, treat it like a health crisis. Totally take the criminalization aspect out of it. I thought that was wonderful. So I think that Yang was one of the winners of the night. How much that will reflect in the polls, I do not know. I don't know. It seems like this election's already been going on for a long time, and I don't know how big of a bump he could possibly get this late off of one debate performance, and who knows how many people even watched the debate. So But I do think he's a winner. I think he performed one of the best on stage for sure. Now, the other winner is Bernie. Now, in the case of Bernie, I told you guys, he didn't get to speak that much. He really didn't. It seemed like they were ignoring him on purpose. But when I watched the debate the second time, it was crystal clear to me that every time he spoke, he nailed it. Every time he spoke, he was succinct, he was to the point. Now, I do think it's a fair argument to make that, okay, well, he did well, but the strategy is still wrong. I think that's a fair point to make. Why? Because at this point, yes, I do think that you need to draw clear distinctions with Elizabeth Warren, and he's still not doing that. He's still not doing that. It's still, the dynamic on stage. Regardless of what their actual policies are off stage, the dynamic on stage is Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren versus everybody else. I mean, that's the dynamic. That's how they're presenting themselves. So that you're doing a little bit of a disservice there because you're letting her, piggyback off of the movement you created. You're letting her kind of say, yeah, me too. There was one time in the debate she literally said, oh, me and Bernie already agreed to this. And it was talking about money in politics, talking about not taking big donor money. You're kind of letting her get away with some misleading stuff there because there are differences, for sure. Originally she said she's going to raise big money in the general election. Then she switched that to, no, I'm not going to take big money in the general election now because, the left was all over her about that. And then she flipped again to, I'm not going to raise big money in the general, but I will raise big money for the party. Well, effectively the same thing, because then the party could take the money and then funnel it back to you. And also, she did some sneaky accounting tricks where she raised big donor money in her Senate campaign a few years back, and now she's funneling that money into her candidacy now. Now, they say, oh, Bernie funneled money too. Yeah, but Bernie's money was never raised from big donors. Hers were. There's a giant difference there. So she's getting away with, defining herself as like Bernie, and that's not good. That's not good. So you could say, hey, Bernie's strategy isn't good at this moment because he's not making that clear distinction. I agree with you. But having said that, within the confines of the strategy that he chose to take, I think he did as good as he could possibly do. And there's a lot of evidence for that as well. He had, the night of the debate, he had tens of thousands of donations, individual donations, and they raised $650,000, which was more than anybody. So, by every metric after that debate, and by the way, shockingly, even mainstream media was saying, yeah, he did okay. He did pretty well. Whoa, I'm surprised by that. So there's an amalgamation of stuff that really, verifies that thought in my mind that even though he didn't get to speak that much, he did really well. And there was almost like a perfect storm of things coming together leading into this debate. We got the news that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar and potentially Rashida Tlaib as well, they've all endorsed Bernie. So now there are headlines that are being run, articles that are being run, where even mainstream media has to admit, okay, well, yeah, she does kind of represent this new age of Democratic politics. She does kind of represent the future and this new ideology that's ascendant in the Democratic Party. So it is kind of a big endorsement. So you have articles about that. They're admitting that. You have the fundraising numbers, which are awesome. You have pundits who are saying, yeah, he did a really solid debate performance. You have the fact that he looked really healthy and sounded really healthy. And in the previous debates, that wasn't necessarily the case. And then you also have, he really did hit Joe Biden with some sick burns. He really had some standout moments. So, yeah, I think the big losers are Klobuchar and Mayor Pete. The big winners are Bernie and Yang. And then here's the thing about everybody else, flatlining. So there's an argument, though, that that's all some of them had to do, which is an interesting argument. I half buy it, half don't. But, okay, if they're just flatlining, well, then the polls stay stagnant, and then you still have Bernie in, second or even third place, and we're deadlocked there. So that's not a good thing. But, yeah, I think Elizabeth Warren, she had a flat performance. Not much stood out to me except some awkward moments with Biden where she didn't pounce. But best case scenario for Biden, best case scenario for Warren, the polls are just deadlocked and they flatline. And that would still be a big problem for Bernie. But we have to wait and see what the results are in terms of the polls coming out about this debate afterwards. And, it is what it is, man. But he's definitely fighting really hard. He's definitely doing a solid job. And I think this was a good sign in this sense. And other people pointed this out to me as well. It does kind of feel like a little bit of a rebirth of the campaign after everybody and their mother was really counting him out. After the heart attack, stay in the hospital, we were starting to get this existential sense of dread of like, oh no. It seemed like it was coming apart at the seams there for a little bit. But for sure, he staved off those doom and gloom prospects, and that is definitely something to celebrate. So anyway, that's my debate breakdown. Let me know who you think the winners and losers are, because I'm curious what everybody thinks, because there's seems to be wide disagreement in this particular debate, and I can understand why that is. This debate was a little bit of a Rorschach test, I think. Like, you can almost read into it whatever you want to read into it. But that's how I think it unfolded. Klobuchar Pete, bad. Bernie Yang, good.